You learned to fly in Tucson. Your father was Air Force Vietnam, the kind of pilot who came home and never talked about it. He taught you on a Cessna 172 at a municipal airstrip where the hangar smelled like oil and dust and old men with stories they wouldn't tell. You soloed at 17. You had the touch, not the math, not the theory, just the instinct for when the plane wants to do something before the instruments tell you. Your father said that's what keeps you alive when everything else fails. He died when you were 23. Heart attack, dropped in the driveway unloading groceries, you became a cargo pilot. Small operations, freight companies that needed someone who could land on short runways in bad weather, you flew medicine to rural clinics, you flew engine parts to oil rigs. You flew anything that needed to be somewhere yesterday. The pay was low but the flying was honest. You got good at reading whether that wasn't in the forecast. You got good at knowing which mechanical sounds mattered and which didn't. Then the freight company folded, bankruptcy. The owner apologized over the phone like it was his fault the economy existed. You had $3,000 in your checking account and a resume that said, "Can fly planes to places other pilots won't go." That's a marketable skill, just not in the market you thought. The job offer comes through a guy named Marco you flew with once in 2009. He calls you on a Tuesday, says he has a client who needs a pilot, flexible schedule, good money. You ask what cargo. He says agricultural equipment, medical supplies, industrial machinery. He's lying and you both know it and neither of you says so. You meet the client at a hotel bar in Hermosillo. The client is a man in his 50s wearing a linen shirt and expensive sunglasses he doesn't take off indoors. His name is Ernesto, he doesn't use a last name. He offers you $20,000 for one flight, Culiacan to a private airstrip near Ojinaga, 6 hours mostly over empty desert. You'll fly at night, you'll fly low. You won't file a flight plan, you ask what you're carrying. He says, does it matter? You think about the $3,000, you think about your father teaching you to land in crosswinds. You think about whether he'd be disappointed or just unsurprised. You say yes. The answer is yes, it matters, but you take the job anyway. The plane is a Cessna Caravan, single-engine turboprop. Workhorse of remote aviation. It's older than you are but maintained better than most commercial fleets. You inspect it the way your father taught you. Fuel, oil, control surfaces, tires, lights. Everything checks. Whoever owns this plane understands that a crash costs more than maintenance. The cargo is cash, not drugs. Cash, they load it in duffel bags. You don't count it but you estimate based on weight and volume. Somewhere between $40 and $60 million. Used bills bundled tight, packed like sandbags. The plane's center of gravity shifts as they load it. You recalculate your fuel burn and climb rate mentally. This much weight, you'll need every meter of runway. Ernesto hands you a GPS unit with one waypoint programmed. No map, no backup coordinates. If you get lost, you stay lost. He also hands you a satellite phone with one number saved. You're allowed to use it once. After that, you're on your own. He says, if you get intercepted by Mexican military, you do not land. If you get intercepted by U.S. Border Patrol, you do not land. If your engine fails, you land, you walk away, and you never mention this flight to anyone. You nod. He says, if the money arrives, you get paid. If the money doesn't arrive, you don't. You ask, and if I don't arrive? He doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. You take off at 11 p.m., no lights on the runway. Just the plane's landing lights and someone's truck parked at the far end with headlights pointing down the strip. You push the throttle forward and the caravan lumbers into the air like it's carrying a small building, which it basically is. You retract the gear and bank north, staying under 500 feet. Flying this low at night is math and instinct. You can't see the terrain clearly. You're reading the GPS, watching the altimeter, feeling the air currents for the updrafts that mean mountains ahead. The caravan handles like it's drunk, sluggish, heavy. Every correction takes longer than it should. You flew fire-spotting missions in Idaho that were smoother than this. 2 hours in, the GPS starts drifting. Not broken, just imprecise. Off by half a kilometer, then a full kilometer. You're supposed to be tracking a highway below, but you can't see it. Either you're off course or the highway isn't where the map says. You correct west. The plane resists. The weight in the back makes every maneuver feel like negotiating with physics. Your father used to say, the plane will tell you what it needs, you just have to listen. You're listening, the plane is telling you it doesn't like this flight. At hour 3, you see lights behind you. Small, distant, closing fast, could be cartel, could be military, could be someone else who doesn't want to be seen. You push the throttle as far as it will go without risking the engine. The Caravan's max speed is 170 knots. Whatever's behind you is faster. You kill your lights, all of them. Navigation, interior, everything. You're flying blind now, instruments only, no visual reference. The ground below is black, the sky above is black. You exist in a small lit rectangle of gauges and numbers and your own breathing. The lights behind you sweep past to the east, not following, just faster. After 10 minutes you turn your nav lights back on, your hands are shaking. That doesn't happen often. You land at the coordinates Ernesto gave you, it's not an airstrip. It's a dirt road next to a dried riverbed with truck tire tracks worn into the sand. There are no lights, no buildings, no people. You bring the Caravan down hard, bouncing twice before the wheels grab. You taxi to the end of the road and shut down the engine. For 5 minutes, nothing happens. Just you, the dark, and the ticking sound of the engine cooling. Then headlights, 4 trucks, they pull up without speaking. Men unload the duffel bags in under 6 minutes. They work like a logistics crew, efficient and silent. One man hands you an envelope, you don't open it, they leave, you're alone again, you wait 20 minutes. Then you start the engine and take off. Empty, the plane feels light enough to float off the runway without throttle. You climb to 8,000 feet, file a VFR flight plan for Tucson and fly home like nothing happened. The envelope has $20,000 in hundreds, you count it twice, it's all there. They call you again 3 weeks later, same route, different cargo, same money, you say yes faster this time. By the 4th flight you stop asking questions. By the 10th flight you stop thinking about your father. The work is lucrative and predictable, $20,000 per flight, 2 flights a month, $480,000 a year. You pay off your student loans in 8 months. You buy a house in Scottsdale with a garage. You start dating a woman named Lauren who thinks you fly medical supply runs for a nonprofit. It's close enough to true that the lie doesn't feel heavy. You're good at this. Not the crime, the flying, the low-altitude navigation, the improvisation when weather or equipment fails. You land on roads, on dry lakes, once on a highway outside Alter at 3 a.m. when your GPS died completely and you navigated by dead reckoning. The cargo always arrives. Ernesto tells you you're the most reliable pilot they've used in 6 years. That should worry you. It doesn't. Reliable means safe. Safe means they need you. The mistake happens on Flight 18. You don't load the plane, you never load the plane, but this time you watch. They're moving faster than usual, less careful. One of the duffel bags splits. Cash spills onto the tarmac. They scoop it up, but you see what's underneath. Not just cash, bricks, vacuum-sealed, unmarked, you know what they are without asking. Your deal was cash, only cash. That was the line you drew, the thing that let you sleep at night. You're a courier, not a trafficker. Semantics maybe, but semantics are all you have. You tell Ernesto you're done. He listens without interrupting. Then he asks, how much do you owe on your house? You say, that's not relevant. He says, you owe $210,000. Your girlfriend works at a dental office on Camelback Road. She drives a silver RAV4. Her daughter from her first marriage is named Sophie. Sophie is 7. She goes to Kiva Elementary. He's not threatening you, he's showing you the map. You were never just a pilot, you were always an asset. Assets don't quit, they get retired. You keep flying. Flight 19, 20, 25. You stop counting, the routes change. The cargo doesn't. You fly into Guatemala once, Honduras twice. You land on roads that aren't roads in places that aren't on maps. You get good at forgetting where you've been. Lauren asks why you're gone so much. You tell her the nonprofit expanded operations. She doesn't ask follow-up questions. That bothers you more than if she did. Either she believes you or she's chosen not to know. Both options mean you're lying to someone who deserves better. You think about stopping. But stopping means what? Confessing? Disappearing? Either way, Sophie loses her mother, or her mother loses you, or everyone loses everything. The math doesn't work, so you keep flying. The crash happens on Flight 32, not pilot error, mechanical failure. The turbine seizes at 4,500 feet over Sonora. No warning. Just a sound like a car hitting a wall and then silence. You're flying a brick with wings now, and physics is no longer negotiable. You have 90 seconds to find somewhere flat. There's a dry lakebed 3 kilometers east. You glide. The caravan drops altitude at 700 feet per minute. You do the math, you're not going to make it to the lakebed. You're going to hit a ridge. You pull back, trading speed for altitude, stretching the glide as far as it will go. The plane shudders, the stall warning screams. You clear the ridge by 30 feet and slam into the desert floor on the other side. The landing gear collapses, the right wing folds, you hit your head on something. When you open your eyes, the windscreen is cracked and there's blood on your hands. You check yourself. Concussion probably, broken wrist maybe, alive definitely. The cargo is scattered across 50 meters of sand, duffel bags torn open, cash everywhere and bricks, lots of bricks. You stare at it. This is $40 million worth of evidence lying in the open desert under a clear sky at 7 a.m. You call the satellite phone. Ernesto answers. You tell him what happened. He asks if you're hurt. You say yes. He says, can you walk? You say yes. He says, then walk. Leave the plane, leave the cargo, walk east until you find a road. We'll handle the rest. You ask, what about me? He says, you were never here. You walk 4 hours through desert until you find a highway. A truck driver picks you up, drops you in a town called Caborca. You pay cash for a bus ticket to Nogales. You cross the border on foot with a passport and a story about a hiking accident. The customs agent looks at your wrist, your bruises, and waves you through. You don't hear from Ernesto again. No calls, no money, no threats. You check the news for reports of a crashed plane in Sonora. Nothing, they cleaned it up. They cleaned you up too. You were an asset, now you're a ghost. You're working at a flight school in Tucson now. You teach private pilot certification, ground school, pattern work, cross-country navigation. The students are retirement-age men and 22-year-old kids who want to be airline pilots. You teach them how to land in crosswinds, how to read weather, how to trust the instruments when your instincts lie. You don't fly at night anymore, not because you're afraid, because you can't. You tried once. Got in the plane, started the engine, taxied to the runway, sat there with the throttle at idle until someone radioed and asked if you were okay. You taxied back, shut down, and walked away. You haven't tried again? Lauren left 8 months after the crash. She said you'd changed. You told her you were the same person. She said that was the problem. She took Sophie. You didn't fight it. How do you fight someone who's making the right decision for the wrong reasons she doesn't fully understand? You live in a 1-bedroom apartment near the airport. You can hear planes landing all night. Cessnas, Pipers, the occasional bizjet. You listen to them the way some people listen to rain. You can tell by the engine sound if they're struggling. You can tell by the flare if the pilot is new or experienced. You can tell everything except what they're carrying. A student asked you last week why you don't fly anymore. You told him you had an accident and lost your confidence. He said confidence comes back. You nodded. You didn't tell him that confidence isn't what you lost. You see Marco once 2 years later. He's sitting at the same hotel bar in Hermosillo where you met Ernesto. You're there for a flight school conference. Coincidence? Probably. He buys you a drink, asks how you've been. You tell him you're teaching now. He says that's good, honest work. You don't disagree. He says they replaced the plane, got a newer caravan, twin engine, safer. He says they could use someone with your experience. He says the pay is better now, $30,000 per flight. You say, I'm done. He says, everyone says that. You finish your drink and leave. You don't look back. You don't need to. You know what's behind you. A bar, a man, an offer, and a version of yourself that accepted the first time. You think about your father sometimes. Not the lessons he taught you, those you remember every day. You think about the stories he didn't tell. Vietnam. Whatever he saw, whatever he did, whatever he carried home and kept locked in a place you never got access to, you understand now. Some things you don't share because they're too heavy. Some things you don't share because once you say them out loud, they become real in a different way. Your father flew helicopters in a war zone, you flew cash for a cartel, different cargo. Same weight, the cartel doesn't run on drugs, drugs are just the product. What it runs on is the same thing every gray economy runs on: people who are good at something specific, who need money badly enough, and who convince themselves that logistics is neutral. That the flight is just a flight, that your hands are only on the controls, not the cargo. You were the best pilot they had. That's not a boast, it's just what Ernesto said, and he was right. You delivered $40 million in cash through the dark over hostile terrain with mechanical precision. You never lost a load, you never missed a deadline, you were reliable. That's what keeps you awake, not guilt, not fear, the fact that you were good at it.